Good afternoon, everyone. We now begin the 38th chapter of the Tanya, where in the previous chapters, the Alter Rebbe explained the advantage of the physical mitzvahs, that the mitzvahs that are, and also the mitzvahs that are dependent on speech, that through them they raise the nefesh, the vitalizing soul in a person is elevated to holiness. Since the mitzvahs that are done in action and in speech, they are done with the power of the vitalizing soul within a person. That this is the soul that enlivens the physical limbs of a person. That these limbs are the vessels of performance for the mitzvahs. And with this power, the power for a person to bring speech from his mouth, like that's one of the examples. That through these different powers, the speech, the words of the Torah and the person's davening come into expression. And since that the ultimate purpose of the descent of the soul down below is not because of the soul itself, as we explained. Rather, it's in order to refine and to elevate the vitalizing soul and a person's body. And the concept is that through the action-related mitzvahs and through the mitzvahs that are related to speech, that is how a person elevates his vitalizing soul and body. And now we get to the new chapter. With everything that we mentioned above regarding the advantage of mitzvahs in action and in speech, that through them the vitalizing soul is elevated to holiness, that this will be Yuvan Hativ Sak Halacha Harucha B'Talmud Peskin De Hirhor Lav Kedibur Dami. It will be understood through the judgment in Jewish law, that the Talmud goes very much in depth, and the rabbis that deal with the judgment related halacha that we actually do in practice, that it says that thinking is not like speaking. Even if a person reads the Shema, that a person is a Jew is obligated to read the Shema twice a day, one in the morning, one at night. And if a person only thinks it in his mind and he doesn't speak it, he does not fulfill his obligation of reading the Shema. And he has to go back, even if he thought about it, he has to go back and he has to actually speak it and express the words with his mouth. And so too with the blessing after meals, which is a commandment from the Torah. That even though with regards to the prayer after meals, it's not in it's not written in the Torah when it says Vidibarta and you shall speak it, even though it's not written there explicitly, just as when it is written by reading the Shema. Despite this, the judgment is that a person does not fulfill his obligation of the blessing after meals in thought alone. Rather, he must express it specifically in speech. Ushar brachas derabanan, and then also the blessings which are from rabbinical origin. That even those blessings have to be put into speech. Ubit tefillah, and also with prayer. even though that it is the service of the heart. Still, that prayer is called the service of the heart. Still, it must be expressed in speech. But despite this, a person must speak the words of his prayers. And if he does not, he does not fulfill his obligation of prayer through just speaking it. Through just thinking it. Ve'im. And on the other hand, if if he brings out with his mouth the words of the Shema or the prayer after meals, that even though he didn't have any intent when he said it, but if he does speak it, he actually fulfills his obligation in this case. Even though, he should have intent in his mind while he's also saying it. That's the ultimate way to do the mitzvah. But even if he didn't, the Ein Sarich Lachzor, you don't have to go back and say it again, even though you didn't have any intent in your mind. Levad mi pasuk rishon shel Kriya Shema ubracha rishona shel Tfilas Shemona Esrei. Aside from the first verse of the Shema and the first blessing of the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah prayer. That for those two, if a person did not have intent in his mind, he must go back, and he spoke it. Those are the only two that he must go back and say again. Isa b'Reish Perek Beis Dibrachos, as it says in the Talmud, that it goes into this halacha. Ad kan mitzvahs kavana. As it says, until the end of the first verse in the Shema, the main mitzvah is having intent in that case. Mikan ve'ela. And in the rest of the verses of the Shema, mitzvahs kriya v'chulu. A person fulfills his obligation in speech, even if he is lacking intent. But seemingly we could ask, why would it not be that the intent in his mind without any speech? This should be good without speaking. Well, how is that better than speaking without any intent? Meaning the intent of a person should be the thing that matters. But if a person speaks and has no intent, how is that better than if he has intent and he doesn't speak? Rather, according to what we learned of the advantage of speech, this thing is explained. It explains itself. Because the neshama itself does not need a refinement in the mitzvahs. Rak lahamshich that the idea of mitzvahs by the soul is in order to draw down light and to bring into this world the godly light. And in this, l'sakin nefesh achiyunis v'aguf, to refine the vitalizing soul and the body. Al yedei oisies adibur she'anefesh medaberes, but the shem mitzvahs hapeh, that through the words of speech, that the soul speaks about God when he expresses with his mouth. Became a mitzvahs ma'asiyos she'anefesh isa b'shar evrei aguf. And so too with the rest of the action-related mitzvahs that the soul performs in the remaining limbs of the body. That it elevates in this the vitalizing soul and the body. And since, as it was explained, that the main purpose of the soul coming down, of there being a vitalizing soul and a body, that in all the mitzvahs in speech, they do not help, that the intent does not help, and the thought doesn't do anything alone. That's something for it is it would be related to the godly soul. Because if it was just in his thought, that's only related to his godly soul. But rather, a person must express it in speech. And the reason for this is that and because of this, he fulfills his obligation. He fulfills his obligation on even though it's on a lower level, with speech alone, even without intent in his mind. For we see that through the deed of the mitzvah, that it's an action. The speech is an action by a person. The person moves his mouth, and that through this he elevates and refines his vitalizing soul and his body.